All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Adrenaline and Instinct. Today, I have a guest that actually means a lot to me, but I need my notes to properly introduce this man. He is a world class, a world champion elk caller, a widely successful elk hunter, marketing manager at Phelps Game Calls, and co-host for the Cutting the Distance podcast. He's known as the Bugler. We have Dirk Durham.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. How's it going? How's life down in Meridian?
It's hot. It's hotter than the hubs of Hades around this place, but that's what air conditioning's for.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And I'm just gonna say I'm not a morning person. If I were a morning person, I'd get up early and go get my workouts and my hikes in and stuff before it gets hot, but I can't get out of bed that early. I only do that for elk season. So I've been hiking middle of the day here in the city. It's almost like, well, you know what? That's my punishment. If you can't get your butt out of bed, you can hike around here and sweat your guts out in the heat. So it ain't fun, but I think it's, it back to doing things like they say, doing hard things. Doing hard things a lot then builds mental toughness. And I know that it's probably not going to be that hot in September. Well, I hope not. So.
Fingers crossed, man, or I'm sitting water if it is.
Yeah.
So, funny story, Dirk. Our paths actually crossed at one point in time at an elk-shaped camp.
Okay. Yeah.
One Dan Staten 2 years ago. I was one of the dudes that couldn't even put a reed in my mouth and be able to even like emit a sound. And you had actually when you were taking all the classes or the different classes outside and kind of showing everyone the ropes, man, you taught me how to bugle. And kind of the best thing was that season I had put, it was like 18 days in the field. It was like that was the entire month of September was blocked off. The motivation was so high, but was able to bugle in my first bull. And luckily, most of it's luck, but he was able to whack a 6-point my first season. But so much of it I accredit to what you were teaching. When I know you weren't like teaching me because we were buddies, but just your love for teaching the game.
Oh man, well thank you. I appreciate the feedback and the comment and the story, man. That's awesome. I don't know. I always say elk hunting will change your life. And you can probably feel that. It's an awesome experience, and man, I just love hearing those kind of stories because I don't know how many of those elk shaped camps I did with Dan. I don't know, 5 or 6, and each camp you meet a ton of different people, and some of the folks can't make a sound with a call, and others, are natural. They just take right off and do it. But you always send them out in the world. You're like, okay, I hope this worked. I hope it helped. And yeah. Man, I love hearing that story, like to get the feedback that it actually did. So
yeah, it really did. And I think one of the cool things is like going into that, it was honestly on a whim. I was messaging back and forth with Dan, and somebody had dropped out and he was like, dude, just come do it. Here, just pay this person for what they kind of paid us and come enjoy. And I honestly, I thought it was going to be just kind of crap, just to say it lightly. And I've told Dan this now many times. I live over in the Coeur d'Alene area. But the awesome thing was I ended up going and, it really did change my entire outlook on how to approach it. I had a lot of effort put into it already. And, luckily it was like coming in, the fitness wasn't the question, which usually like that will limit everybody. Mm-hmm. Still limited me, don't get me wrong, but sure. Definitely was, I knew I had to be fit for it, but I knew I had to be a good shot. And I'm like, all right, the missing piece is like, how do I find these suckers and how do I communicate with them?
Yeah. Well, those camps, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's just so much information and you're like, man, I hope all this sticks because I know whenever I'm learning a lot of stuff, even if I'm super invested in listening and like, oh yeah, I love that. But then you get home and a couple days later, my old brain's like, oh, what did they say? So, man, I'm glad it stuck.
Yeah, just all the mental notes and Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it changed my life at this point. Now it's every September is just how can I chase a bugle. Um, didn't I'm guessing my wife didn't love that I like grew a new hobby and a new passion and all of that, but it's she loves the meat in the freezer. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough because elk hunting will compete with your family time and family vacation time and all that and which we've talked about this at the camps too before. It's like, man, we have to be super intentional as hunters to like communicate, you know, our intentions. We're going to be hunting for XYZ many days in September, and but I'm going to have all this stuff, you know, ready to go for you to, so it's not, life's not going to suck when I'm gone, you know, for your significant other, and also, you know, doing the things in the off season that maybe you don't really like to do. With, you know, some of the stuff girls want you to do. Oh, I want to go to the farmer's market, or I want to go here and there. It's like, okay, yeah, let's go. You just kind of have to, you know, grin and do the time, right?
Oh yeah,
Because it can't be. I think that's where everybody kind of gets fouled up. Is it seems a little lopsided to where, as a guy, you get to go out and have your fun, your man time, or your fun, and the ladies, they just don't seem to get that all the time, and so being intentional, like maybe even schedule time for them to have a girls' retreat or go do fun stuff for what they like to do too. That's what it's all about.
yeah. You definitely can't ask for an entire month to do what we love, and not expect to have to give some of it back,
Yeah.
which is something. I'd be really curious though, man, because I know you're a family man as well. Like, how
hmm
did your hunting change, kind of from the before the family to then having a family, having children?
Um, I was married. Well, we got married early. I got married young, and we had kids young. I was 21 when we had our first baby, and so um, it went from I didn't and before I was married, I didn't have a lot of vacation time anyway. So it was actually, as I was married, I got a little bit more vacation time because I'd been at the job longer, and but how I kind of balanced it, I was like, if I'd go to elk camp, the family would go too. That was our vacation. We'd all go. You know, the kids were babies even at times. You know, sleeping in a tent, and I'd go hunting for the day, and you know, leave mama back at camp with the kids, and they loved it. The kids loved it. They absolutely loved that time. And September is such a great time of year to be in the woods. Anyway, it's not too hot. It's beautiful out. You got the fall colors, and my wife, she enjoys outdoors and camping and stuff. Anyhow, so I try to include them as much as possible. That way, I just wasn't completely absent. You know, whenever I'd go hunting, so I'd get, you know, especially when the kids were little, I'd get like a week a year, you know, to go hunting, and then they would, a lot of time, most of the time they would go. Then fast forward to like high school years, you know, those are tough times because, you know, son's playing football and stuff. So it's like on a Friday night, you go watch the game and then take off to elk camp, and it's like, man, it's gonna be a late night, you know. But you do those things, right? But it seemed to be like, as much as I could include them and everything, you know, as if my son wasn't playing football and wasn't practicing, then he was going hunting with me too. Which my daughter and my wife, they would, by that point, they're like, oh, my daughter was into other things, you know, she didn't want to go, and my wife was just completely fine with that. So they would stay home and do girl stuff while, you know, the guys would go hunt.
Sure.
So, but you know, it's that teaching that love of the outdoors and letting them know your intentions right away. Like from the time her and I got together till we got married, she knew I was very dedicated to elk hunting. I was always going to do it. There was nothing that she was going to do to change my mind. I'm not going to not elk hunt and deer hunt and, you know, hunt in general, but would love, you know, she can enjoy it with me, or the family can enjoy it with me, and once we kind of established that, there was really no surprises. You know, I think it's that for the folks that maybe didn't have that, maybe early in their relationship, and then decide, I think I'm going to start hunting. That's a huge, like, whoa, you're going to do what? You're gonna go out in the mountains and have a bunch of fun while I'm here with the kids for a week straight. You know, that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of families. So
It is, and shout out to my wife, because that was kind of me. Unfortunately, was at 25, I'm like, hey, that looks so much fun. I'm watching all the meat eater videos and just
Mm-hmm.
getting, I grew up in Wisconsin where, deer hunting was you walk out to a tree stand. There was no physicality with it. It's really more of just kind of the fun deer camp vibe, which has a place, but kind of getting
Mm-hmm.
out west, I'm a big dirt biker, a big snowmobiler.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out there, and I end up hearing a bugle when I'm out riding a dirt bike in September at some point, and it was like, what is this? Like, this sounds
Mm-hmm.
so amazing. But then that comes with the like, hey, sorry, honey, I'm heading into the woods on something that I'm going to learn how to do. I'm going to go hike around, call it hunting for a season, and
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. But I think that's probably the biggest one is like support from her end. Where she was like, hell yeah, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it's kind of the rest is history, which is the best thing you could ever hope for as a man.
Yeah. And I think if you can get them involved, like get your wife and kids involved or whatever from the beginning, be like, hey, I want to go hunting. I want you guys to go with me and let them see what it is. Let them understand it's like, I'm hiking up and down these mountains. It's brushy. I'm sweating. This is a lot of work. This isn't just me sitting around a campfire drinking beer with my buddies, right? This is actually working hard, and it's a maybe an experience. Like after you show it to them, and they're like, they can appreciate it, but maybe, you know what, it's not for me. I from the lady standpoint or the kid standpoint, it's like at that point, it's like, well, you go do that. That'll be fine. We're gonna stay home and keep the fires lit at home. But the kids when they get big enough or whatever, they'll probably want to go. But at least if you try to plan things as a family, then like later on, if they want to opt out, be like, yeah, I don't want to do that, but you can. Like my wife, I've always tried to get her to hunt, with me, and she's just like, I don't like to get up early, and I don't like to be cold, and I don't like walking through brush. And that's pretty much what hunting, pretty much what hunting is. So she's just like, I don't really need to hunt, but I'm all for it. You can go hunt. You can go hunt your heart out, but I don't want to do it. It's like, okay, well, that's okay. But it is fun too when they say they do want to do it, and then you can enjoy it as a family too.
Absolutely, man. I think that's like one of the cool things about the Midwest, which I was Midwest boy, moved out west, really mountains, found Idaho. It's very Midwestern as far as how nice people are and kind of the values they hold. But we have mountains, so I can go do fun stuff out there. But one of the things that like Wisconsin deer hunting has is it's such a family event. Typically, like when you're done, get out of your stand, you come out, and it's just everyone's sitting around the fire drinking beer and hanging out and having a good
Mm-hmm.
time, barbecuing, telling all the stories about the stumps you shot, thinking it was a deer. And, but I feel like in the West, it's definitely a lot more like typically you're not getting out of the woods until the evening, late
Mm-hmm.
evening after
Yeah.
dark, and you're trying to get food down enough to go to sleep to get a couple hours before you're up again at 3 a.m. And do you think like with that, because you said you tried to make it more of like that family endeavor,
Mm-hmm.
like do you think that was a reason why it was so easy to keep doing it, or would you have done it anyways no matter what?
I probably would have done it no matter what. Like, laid the ground rules. Hey, I'm going hunting, but I wanted them to be part of it. But I think, yeah, I think it's important, to share that with your family. If you teach somebody to love something, they're gonna want to enjoy it too. So maybe they don't want to hike the hills, but they don't mind going camping and enjoy the scenery and the camp life and making food and stuff from when you're ready to come back and sit around the campfire at night and enjoy each other's company. My
Yeah.
son, I gave him when he was, I don't know how old he was. He must have been like, oh shoot, he was probably 6 or 7. I gave him a survival knife. I had like back when I was a kid, the survival knife was almost like a Rambo knife, right? They were kind of like the cool thing, and I had mine from when I was a kid, and so I gave him my old knife when he was about 6 or 7. It was kind of dull, but it was sharp enough to kind of cut things. But man, he sat around there at camp when I was gone hunting, and I get back at night. when I get back, he'd show me all this crap he'd hacked up and stabbed and chopped with that stupid knife. He actually destroyed that thing in one week of elk hunting when I was hunting. He just chopping everything with it. But I think there's a lot. It kind of goes, those times and those experiences, those plant some really good memories and like some reminiscent things to where as adulthood you look back and you think about all those fun things. I know I did when I was a kid, certain places and certain fields and certain lighting, like the fall lighting hits and you get in a place where their fall colors are. Man, it's like a memory, and you smell that scent of pine or whatever scent in the backcountry, and you think, man, I remember when I was a kid at a certain time and place. You remember those things, and so I think it's good. It gets the kids and the wife into the outdoors, and I think they're going to want to support your stuff after that.
Might have lost you here. Looks like connection was getting a little unstable.
Okay, I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
I think it records on my end. If we lose connectivity to each other, it'll record on my end too. So.
Okay, awesome. So I wish I would have heard the last few little sentences, but honestly, I mean, I think even jumping in, I guess, to get more even into you as a person, like, when did you know that like you had something that a lot of others in this game don't have?
I don't know. I feel like I took to hunting and calling elk. It seemed like I was naturally gifted at it. Maybe I didn't have to work that hard to like learn how to call elk. I mean, I practiced a lot, but I took to it immediately. It wasn't like I struggled and was like, oh man, I just can't. The diaphragm don't fit my mouth right. I think I was just gifted to where diaphragms fit my mouth right, while other people have all these really cool, they have a really big brain and can solve giant mathematical equations and stuff. I have a palate that's shaped perfectly for an elk call, and I can blow on it pretty good. So I don't know when I realized that, but I knew, like, I remember the day like that I knew I was going to bow hunt elk was September 1st, 1988. My first encounter with elk at a water hole. I was waiting for a bear to come in. I was rifle hunting, and these elk came into this water hole. I was like, man, if I had a bow, I could kill these things so easy right now. But I didn't have a bow, so. But I knew the next year I would definitely have a bow, and that's all I could think about for the next year is how I was going to make enough money to buy a bow and arrows and all the gear to hunt elk, and I made it happen. Like I was just driven. But as long as I can remember, I wanted to hunt. My uncle and my dad had all these hunting magazines, and I would just sit there and comb through them and look at pictures of big bulls and big sheep and big bucks, and start out looking at the pictures. Then later on, you start reading the stories, and then I don't know. I just had no doubt in my mind that I was gonna hunt.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. Like, the funny thing is, everyone starts somewhere, and ever since kind of my getting into hunting and kind of consuming the industry, you've always been a household name. So, at what point, did you kind of realize that, like, hey, we're doing something, and people are starting to like what I'm doing, and like, when did that kind of start to pick up steam?
Probably like 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. The internet was getting pretty cool by then. You had like lots of forums, and it was about the same time Facebook hit or maybe started. And it seemed like, but forums were like more my cup of tea. You could get on there and read. People would ask hunting questions, and you could read hunting stories and stuff. It's like there's a bowsite.com. I think it's still going. There's a big forum there. Like categories for everything. And man, I'd get on there and read all these people's questions and comments about elk hunting and whatnot, and I'd chime in, and it seemed like after that you get on social media, and then a friend of mine and I we started hunting again together. We hadn't hunted for years together. We started hunting again and filming it, and people liked it. That hunting with Corey Jacobson with Elk 101. Him and I hunted quite a bit there, filmed it quite a bit there in that time period, and started writing some web articles for Elk 101. And I think that's kind of when people are like, oh, I like this guy, what he's saying. And you start getting some positive feedback. So I always felt like I should share. I always think you should share what you learn, right? Because if you just keep that to yourself and silo it away, and well, if you have to share a landscape with other hunters, right? And if you have a landscape full of hunters that have zero clue of what they're doing, sometimes that can be that's worse than having a group of killers, right? At least killers are probably going to operate with less of a footprint or maybe effect on the elk. If they don't kill them, they're probably not going to spook them all off, right? Whereas if you don't know anything about elk hunting at all, and you go out there and you're just kind of, trying to figure it out, and you're just kind of bumbling around through the woods and making all the wrong moves and making lots of mistakes. Not that I don't make mistakes still, but you're making a lot of obvious mistakes and spooking elk out of the country. I mean, which is worse, right? Having people just spook all the elk away, or having to share a landscape with people that know what they're doing, have a better idea what they're doing, and maybe you're not tripping over each other so much and spooking as many elk. So
Yeah. All right, I got to cut back because even when you're talking about going out like hunting with Corey, what do you guys ever just not agree on an approach, or is everything kind of at that point you guys are on the same level, same page?
oh yeah, we would disagree. I think we should do this. I don't think so. We would debate it sometimes. Sometimes an obvious decision, but we would definitely debate things.
Yeah.
And then, all right, well, let's stop it. All right, let's have the conversation, analyze it, and then kind of take it from there. But yeah, and I think that and I think all partners should understand that. It don't matter how new or how experienced you are. Sometimes talking it over. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, we all kind of oh, obviously we should do this, but it's well, wait a minute, let's just pause. Let's get tactical here for a second and go past the obvious what we should do. And sometimes taking that pause or having a sounding board or somebody to check you and say, oh no, what about this? Oh yeah. Well, I can't believe, I think that's just anything in life, whether you're trying to do a marketing campaign or trying to set up on an elk, there's some things that you just kind of get tunnel vision on and you kind of miss. So it's good to have a sounding board partner that'll say, I disagree, or what do you think about that?
Yeah. With you guys being so, I mean, advanced probably doesn't even do it justice with where you guys are on your elk calling. It's is there just some great shit talking between you two, in those days of going, where you think you're better, he thinks he's better?
We didn't do too much of that. A little bit, you dig each other a little bit, but yeah, we didn't talk too much trash. I mean, you do a little backhanded comment here and there, but when mistakes were made and things hurt, everybody kind of knows, yeah, come here, man, that sucks. I'm sorry that didn't work out. But you didn't gloat in failure, oh, yeah, suck it. You just choked or whatever. Got to be empathetic to your partner. You got to lift them up.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear, because somebody as successful as you in the hunting game, I would say this podcast probably speaks to a lot of, I know I have a lot of hunters that do listen, but I also have a lot of people that are in kind of adjacent sports that maybe share the landscape with hunters, but they can kind of love and appreciate what hunters do because it feeds off kind of some of those same energy systems. But I'd be just really curious, kind of your definition of success in the elk woods. And I know it's relative, and I know, as you get better and better, that success and that definition changes quite a bit. But I would just be kind of curious to hear where it is now and maybe how it's changed over the last few years.
I don't think it's really ever changed. So, success number one. Did I hear an elk bugle today? Yes, I did. Or no, I didn't. if I didn't hear an elk bugle today, that's a bad day. Like, but I always can, like, at the end of the day, maybe we didn't kill anything. I said, yeah, but we did hear a bull. We heard five bull. What we heard bulls bugling. So that's always a number one. That's a win. And every year on the first day of the hunt, I always have this weird little thing inside, like, oh God, I hope the elk bugle this year. Because I've hunted before, like, you go for a long time, like maybe 4 or 5 days stretch without hearing an elk bugle. Since, if you're hunting wolf infested country, it's like it can be tough. So I heard of an elk bugle, awesome, okay. And then when you call one in, when you fooled that elk, when you made him believe that I was another wild animal, I was another elk, and he came in to like archery range, shooting distance, or real close, like he thought I was another elk. That right there is 100% success to me. If I can fool that elk and make him think I'm another elk, without a doubt. Now, whatever happens after that, maybe it's too brushy for a shot, maybe he senses us, maybe he smells us, maybe he sees something, sees you or sees your friend draw, whatever. You bust him out of there. But if he was like committed, like he's going to come over there and whoop another bull's ass, that's 100% success. Now, if you kill him, that's icing on the cake. Like, because you have to understand, like, you're not going to kill everyone. So I've sometimes said, like, you out of every 10 bulls you hear bugle, you might get one into archery range. It's not like, people need to be realistic. Like, if they're like out hunting and they're like, man, I heard all these bulls, but I haven't called one in yet or got a shot. Man, that's the game. It's unless you're in an incredible area, like a draw tag area, or an incredible area where there's just elk everywhere. Man, it is tough. I mean, even for guys like me who've had a lot of experience and been doing it for years, we struggle too sometimes. If I was to say, oh, every day is a holiday and every meal's a feast, I'd be lying. I mean, that'd be a bald-faced lie. We struggle too sometimes, and it hurts because you're like, man, I'm doing this. Why aren't we seeing elk, or why aren't we calling them in, or like we hear them and they just run. Last year in Idaho was tough, Mike. The elk were so call shy. Like, if we heard a bull bugle, it's like 300 yards away. It's like, okay, as the caller, I'm going to stand right here, and I might even walk away a little bit. But the shooter, I'm going to send him forward. You sneak. I'm just going to keep him talking. I'm going to call just enough to keep him talking. You close the gap. And even at that, they're like, yeah, they'd kind of move off. So you're like, you rack your brain like, man, what am I doing wrong? This sucks. But in the end, remember, success. How do you define your success? Well, I heard an elk bugle. Yes, I heard an elk bugle. Did we call him into range? That's top tier success for me. No, we didn't. But we chased him around for a couple, 3 hours. Even if you get to chase him around for 2 or 3 hours and they're bugling the whole time, that's still a huge win. That's still fun. But if they bugle and they don't even like give you a chance and to play a little bit, then that can be pretty disheartening.
Yeah, I so kind of briefly mentioned, but like it was like first archery season, I was able to whack one, which again probably 95% luck and then 5% skill and effort. However, like my last season is almost the one that I hang my hat on the most, and it did not get an elk down, but did have 5 opportunities at full draw, had elk bugling, I would say maybe every day but 3, and it was like I felt like I had like 5 years of learning experience. And now, granted, like for I would say 4 of the 5 full draw opportunities, it was something I messed up, which in a way, yeah, that does sting, but it also is like, I know I'm not going to try to make that same mistake, or I'm going to watch out for it in the future. And, it felt like I had so many years of learning lessons in one season that like the takeaway was probably more valuable than ever getting something on the ground or putting something on the wall. And it was, it was a humbling, one, because you go in with confidence, and I think any guy going into the woods thinks they're going to get it done. When that last day of September rolled over, I was like, it didn't happen, but I almost like just left smiling, and I didn't expect that, which was an interesting one. And it was kind of cool to hear your definition of success, because that was kind of how I I categorized it in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I think who was it? Fred Bear, I think, said something like the and I'm going to totally screw this up. Basically, if you put all the weight of success on taking home an animal from your hunt, then you're probably going to be more disappointed than if you just focus on the whole experience. Because let's just face it, not every hunt is successful as far as tagging an animal, killing one, bringing it home with you. But if you, like you just mentioned, the takeaways, all the learning, all the just experiences, all the encounters and the fun, and then also understanding yourself. Like you, people give up. People give up way before their body does. Their mind gives up way before their body does, right? And like if you can push yourself hard and kind of see where the limits are and push past those, like what your mental limits are, and then at the end you can be like, wow, that was incredibly hard, and I did it. I did it. We killed that thing so far away from the truck, and we killed it and packed it out foot in front of the next foot, every footstep, just forcing every footstep back towards the truck. Or if you didn't kill one, let's say you're just like, it's the walk of shame, and you're going back to the truck from a terrible place, and you walk 2 hours in the dark, and you have to push yourself every step of the way just to make it out. It seems horrible at the time. You're like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing ever. And the next day you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Let's go do it again.
I think the cool part too is, like I can think of I would say the most frustrating kind of best chance I had last year was had a bull that I was able to sneak up on. He was bugling to another one, so I didn't even have to call. It was just kind of like the perfect setup. Wind was in, right in the face, so did not matter. I could kind of charge in, and I get within 30 yards of this dude, and a cow comes from behind him and stands staggered in between me and the cow, and I'm sitting at full draw, waiting, 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 and at last second, when the cow starts to move, she stops, turns, and barks at me, and then everything. And it was like, I remember that one specifically was like the walk out. It was like, a 5 or 6 mile walk, nothing terrible. But I remember it being the quickest I ever thought that walk ever went, because it was like I was just sitting there thinking of like, man, if you would have stopped 15 feet before and kind of anticipated that cows might be in, you might have had a better opportunity. Like I was going through every possible scenario in my head of how I could have done it better or how I could have approached it a little bit differently. And I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they do, like they're not on your time. They're not on anything, but it was just like one of those where I was like leaving kind of just like, it was happy. But it was like productive struggle almost, where I just felt like, man, we're learning how to hunt these things. And I mean, shoot, I probably consume more of the YouTube vids and things like that than most. But man, it just doesn't, it's not the same as being out there and then seeing that situation happen and unfold in front of you. And then making that mistake that video is talked about making 1,000 times over, and it's just so hard to read sometimes.
Yeah, everybody wants to learn, right? They want to learn it before they go. That way they optimize their success opportunity when they get to the woods, right? And like everybody wants the quick fix. Like, here, just I'll take your course, I'll learn how to do it, and then bam, I'm gonna do it. But it's not like you're learn how to read Spanish or something. This is like it's a whole different game. And like you said, to your point, like you don't even know. Like you've heard people talk of this, but until you experience it, now you understand. Like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like why, what are these different things happen? I always say, like, to kill an elk, a series of events have to happen exactly perfect, right? From the time you leave the truck to the time you're standing over your elk and he's dead and you're ready to put a knife in him. The string of events, and you start thinking about those. Like if you want to get tactical and granular, you start thinking about all those little things that have to happen just right. Like when you leave the truck, you have to make the right choice. Where am I going to walk to? Okay. How quickly am I going to walk? How many breaks am I going to take? Am I going to take a nap? Am I not going to take a nap? Am I going to, like, all of that stuff is measured because any variation from that pathway or that timing can take you to a completely different fate, right? You, you sit down for too long, take a long break, you may, happenstance, had you not taken such a long break, you might have just walked right up on a bull standing there. You catch him and you shoot him. Like the biggest shithouse luck you've ever seen. Or maybe you didn't take long enough of a break. You were too quick and you passed that spot and never did see that bull stand there. There's so many things that like have to happen correctly. So it always blows my mind when I do kill an elk. I'm like, man, you start thinking about how everything just clicked. And one little variation there would have thrown it all off whack. But that's why I think it's so important to like pay attention to all the details of where you've fallen short, where you didn't make the right decision, and just like really like, okay, for instance, when I'm calling bulls in and I'm in my setup spot, if I look around and I see like a windfall with big long limbs, they're sticking up to where if a bull walked me on the other side of that windfall, there'd be too many limbs to shoot through, right? I will not set up there. I will move. If I have to move, and it'll be like a worse setup spot. But if I'm not having that barrier between an elk and I will move, because so many times I've set up, and I've seen people set up. You have seen it on YouTube. It's happened to me. People will set up, and there'll be a big old log right there, and elk. I think by design they walk and they put that barrier between you and them, between the other bull and themselves, right? Like, I think that's like a little added security. Like, well, he's gonna have to boil over this big windfall and all these limbs to get me, so I'll walk over here on the other side of it to kind of assess things, see if I can see that bull. So, recognizing those kind of things, and then in burning them into your head, ingraining those into your setups to where every single time you make all the right moves, and you don't skip, you don't get lazy. And then another one people will do, like, first thing I do, I get to my spot. First thing I do, I knock an arrow. It don't, like, some people will stand around range finding everything. It don't matter if you know the ranges on everything. If you don't have an arrow knock, that bull could appear at any second, especially if you have somebody calling for you. Knock an arrow. As soon as you get in your spot, knock an arrow, then range. Okay? Because if you've done your due diligence shooting, you can judge yardage up 20, 30, 40 yards pretty close, right? So, but you can't shoot if you don't have an arrow on your thing. And because I've done this, I've got caught without a arrow knocked, right? So do that. I look down. I immediately look at my feet. What am I standing in? Am I standing in brush? Am I standing on pine cones? Am I standing on little twigs that are going to like go crunch, crunch every time I shift my weight? Well, if I know the bull's a distance away, I immediately take my feet, clear out a spot. And maybe I say, okay, if I stand right here, I see a shooting lane right here. If I take 3 steps, I have 2 or 3 other shooting lanes. So I quickly clear a little path where I'm going to stand versus where I may need to stand in case I need to take 2 or 3 side steps, to where if I step, I won't step on a pine cone or a branch or whatever. It's just having those little ideas, like having those mistakes. I see guys on YouTube a lot. They'll set up on their knees. They'll get out. They'll get to their spot and then they immediately crouch down. They get on their knees. I will not. I will not set up on my knees unless it's like, let's say, if I sit down on my knees, I can shoot under some limbs or something, and the bull's coming. Like, I think like he's going to be here any second. I might do it then. But man, you get on your knees and the dimensions where you can shoot. Like, this bull has to come in now from this exact angle where you're set up for your knee shot, because to pivot and turn, it's not always that easy, because your knees are planted in a quiet place, but your feet are usually over in the bushes or sitting on something that's noisy. You try to pivot, you try to move, it's going to make noise. The bull's going to see you, or your legs are going to fall asleep, and the bull it took a lot longer to get there. Or the bull comes in. Oh, I don't have a clear shot. There's too much brush. It's covering all of these vitals because I'm so low to the ground. Like, these are like the little things that I think of every time I set up for a bull. Like, all these little mistakes that I've always had. Like, I see them, identify. I was like, oh, nope, I'm not going to do that. And I quickly adjust.
Damn, man. Well, I wish I would have talked to you before last season, because about every single thing you just mentioned, was in my second opportunity on a bull, where I set up thinking he would come through. There was kind of this thick, like, I mean, North Idaho, but
Oh
thick,
yeah.
kind of nasty alder. Um, he stops right there, raking away, bugling his head off. I can see everything but just sticks and everything in front of his vitals. Sitting, waiting, waiting. He is just hung up there, and he is
Hmm.
sitting. And it's like probably 5, 6 minutes at this point, and I'm like, man, if I can just move 3 feet to my right, I might have a lane. And what am I standing on? Just total shit under my boots. And, and I go to make that shift, and you hear a couple crunches, and then he ends up bolting, and it's like,
Hmm.
there's that. It's like, would it have worked if I was just more patient? Waited 20, 30 minutes just for him to feel more comfortable. I always go through that one. And then the funny enough one, when that communication back and forth is happening with that bull, I mean, had another one come in on a string that was just silent, wanted to see what was happening.
Hmm.
And I wasn't anticipating, all of these variables. And just, again, blew up another one. He's in at 10
Hmm.
yards in the wide open to my right as I'm trying to call this one back in.
Hmm.
And it's just, there's so many of those little things that, I kick myself on, but honestly, it's half the fun. I think if it was easy, nobody would be in there doing it.
Yeah. Well, and then let's take things back a step further. So you talked about the bull is on the other side of the tag alders or whatever. So in Idaho, North Idaho, there'll be these big splotches or swatches of tag alders. Like they're almost impenetrable. There'll be a trailer above them, below them, and maybe one through the middle of them. But I don't know how many times I've had bulls lock up on the other side of the tag holders. They just won't come in as a solo caller. Now, if I had had a guy behind me, a ways further, probably could have happened. But as soon as I see tag holders between me and where a bull's going to be, like if he's still a little ways out, I will shut up. I will not make any calls, and I will get through them stupid things and set up on the other side because every dang time they will screw me over. So it's knowing those things and identifying these potential problems, like places that bulls are going to hang up. They're going to put that blow down with all the limbs in front of them between you and them. Okay, bam, get away from that. Oh, he's going to come through. He has to come through this big tag alder spot that's like 1 acre in size before he gets to me. There's no way he's going to do it, and if he does, I'm not going to get a shot. So like, okay, go above it or below it. Like we gotta play the wind and get around this obstacle. That way, we have to be like super. It's very tactical, right? So like reading the setup, reading the landscape, reading everything before you even start your calling. Like let's say you heard him from a distance, and you're getting to where it's really close. Like you have to identify these kind of places, these problem spots, before you ever make your calls and avoid those places.
Yeah, and man, it's so much easier said than done, because once the adrenaline starts ripping and you're just so happy this bull is playing your game, and
Yeah.
it's I kick myself because behind that alder patch where it was, like almost think of it like a mohawk kind of running
Mm-hmm.
through this small pocket meadow. My thinking is he's gonna hang up on the other side of the meadow.
Oh
So
yeah.
this is kind of like some good protection, and he could come in on this trail. He blows right through the pocket meadow, right to that alder thicket,
Mm-hmm.
and stops. And it's just that, yeah, it's that inexperience. I'd be really curious to hear your like. I know for very beginner guys, it's things like the wind that ends up getting them if you're not checking that, or just again kind of going directly in and not being vigilant. But I'd be curious, like, to hear what your thoughts are on kind of the guys that have had marginal success.
Mm-hmm.
Here and there, they just can't capitalize it on year over year. What kind of mistakes are you seeing guys like that make?
Most of them are telling me when they're picking my brain. They're like, okay, I get bulls, I get bulls bugling, I get them coming in, but I just never can get a shot. Or every blue moon I get one, but not consistently. And as they describe what's happening, it's always 90% of the time it's always set up, right? It's how they're setting up. They're setting up where the bull can stop at 70 yards, 60 yards, and stop and hang up there to where he can look and see where you're at calling from and not see an elk. So if he can stand out there, if you got some really, like, guys say, yeah, I have really good shooting lanes out to like 60, 70 yards, several of them, and this bull comes in and then it hangs up and it just will bugle and rub and bugle and rub and stand there and look my way, but he'll never come in. Well, you think about it, like if you're the elk and standing where he's at and you're looking over here and you're like, I don't see any elk, but I hear sounds, but I don't see any elk. It gets suspicious. So you have to set up to where the elk has to come close to you, 30 yards or whatever, because those things will stand there at 60, 70 yards and they'll stand with their vitals in the brush and they'll stick their neck out and look. And I mean, all you got is a neck or a head shot. Like, you can't take that with a bow, right? Nobody would. It's not a lethal shot. But them things that's exactly what they'll do. Or let's say there's a little hump, there's a little ridge, and they'll come to the top of, they'll come just on the backside of that ridge. A lot of times they won't just stand right on top of the ridge. Sometimes they'll stand just below the roll of the ridge to where all you see is their neck and their head a little bit, because they can look over it. They got that big old long neck. They'll look and peek over the ridge and be like, I don't see any elk over here. Yep, nope, I'm leaving. But if you can identify these kind of places as you set up, like, okay, where will if that bull comes from that direction, where's the first place that he's going to be able to stop and see my location or see me? Well, if it's not ideal, like quite a ways out of your shooting lane, or even 60, 50, 60 yards, people can shoot that distance pretty good. I mean, most people will say that, but that doesn't mean he's going to stand right in the middle of it. That means he's probably going to stand and poke his head out and look. So you want those things to be sub 30 yards. That way, you might find the little pockets as they move through there. So you got like a decent 30-yard lane, and you got a crappy 15-yard lane, and a really bad 5-yard lane, right? Those are good, because that thing's going to have to come really close to see you, and somewhere in there you're going to get an opportunity to shoot through a hole to hit their vitals. Now that's risky business too, because you can hit a limb and deflect or whatever, but that's how I kind of like to play it. And if I get to where I think, oh, I should probably set up here, and I look around and identify those things, I don't call. I'm like, okay, where do I need to go to maximize my effort? So especially if I have a person I'm calling for, and I seen that little ridge or that little ridge, and be like, all right, you stand over there where when that bull comes over to peek over the ridge, you got full view of his whole body, and you can shoot, right? Because he's going to come and stop right there. Same with that 70-yard shooting lane. Let's say you got lots of 70-yard shooting lanes. Your shooter has to be right at the edge of that 70-yard shooting lane, right? To where if he stops at 70 yards and looks, it's too late. Your buddy's already sitting there, and he sends it.
Yeah. It's, oh man, I'm already getting, I mean, I know season's close, but I am chomping at the bit right now to to get out there. I'd be really curious to hear, like, because I know for somebody like yourself who's had so many bulls, and honestly just has so many experiences in the woods, like, I would love to hear a time, and we'll kind of do two questions here. One being like a time that things just went so south that, like one thing after another either didn't transpire or gear broke or kind of like a nightmare from the woods. And then after, I want to hear like what you kind of look back on as like, this was the best day in the elk woods I've ever
had. Oh, there's so many times things went wrong. I'm going to tell the story of the biggest bull I've ever seen on the hoof. And it was right here in Idaho, back pre-wolves. I went to my little honey hole spot camping. The family didn't go that year, and I get to my camp spot, and there's some guys camped next to it. And I was like, oh man, I don't like camping next to people, especially back then. Back then it was super rare to see anybody. This was 2001, 2001, I think. No, 2000. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. Anyway, I'm like, you know what, heck with it. Probably not even gonna see those guys other than at camp, so it don't matter. So I put my camper there, and there were 3 guys in camp. And then one day I get back from hunting, and of course I'd been into elk, calling bulls, and like been into them. And there was one guy in camp. He's like, "Hey, how's it going? Having luck?" I'm like, "Oh man, wolves everywhere." Spreading hate and discontent, right? Yeah. No, I haven't been into the elk too much. He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Do you drink beer?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Well, those other guys won't drink beer with me." I'm like, "They went to town." I'm like, "Oh, I'll drink a beer with you." So we sat there by his campfire, and he cracks open this cooler, and it's got he's got Keystone Ice, the man cans. These are like the big ones. Like, what are they, 24 ounces or something?
The tall
The
boys.
tall boys. Like, he's got a whole cooler full of them. And he's like, "Here." I'm like, "Oh, Keystone Ice." I'm like, "Well, I'm normal." Back then I was a Keystone Light guy. I'm like, "Oh, heck yeah, I'll try one of those." And I sipped it down. Of course, I'd been sweating and hot day, and like, oh man, it was amazing. It's just sucked that first one down. I'm like, he's like, here, drink as many as you want. So we sat there and we drank them things and visited and told stories around the campfire. And finally, he's like, "All right, it's getting late. I gotta get up. I get up in the morning." So I get up. I just been sitting there the whole time. I get up to walk back to the camper. Man, I'm like, holy moly, those things hit me. So I'm weaving, stumbling back to my camper. Anyway, I get back there in bed now. In the middle of the night, I get bed spins and have to try to find the door of the camper and put my head out and puke on the ground. I was a mess. And I was so mad at myself. I'm like, "Why did you do this, you fool? What? You're elk hunting vacation. This is not what you do." I'm like, I was so mad at myself. Well, the next morning, my alarm went off and slept right through it. This is before, digital, like your iPhone or whatever. This is like an old wind-up piece of junk alarm. I slept right through it. I woke up like at 9 o'clock. I wake up, I walk out the camper, and I look over at the neighbors. Those guys had been hunting and got back. They're like, "Oh, good morning, sunshine," and they're mouthing off. "Oh, nice you could get up." And I'm like, "Oh, shut up." I was so mad at myself. So I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to allow myself to just sit around and be hungover in camp, right? You came here to hunt, get your butt out there." So I jump in the truck and I drive over to this spot. And I'm like, "Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hike out on this ridge, and I know there's probably some elk in that area, and I'm going to do some calling. I'm just going to sit there, and I can be hungover right there on the hillside, or I can be hungover in camp. If I'm hungover on the hillside, at least there's a chance I might kill something." So I leave the truck and get out on the hillside there, and I'm walking, and the brush, it's huckleberry brush. It's like waist high. You know the stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's no being quiet as you're walking through, just like crack. It sounds like you're walking through cornflakes, right? It's just so noisy. And I'm like, I should probably make some little cow calf noises as I'm walking along, just subtle, just so if an elk hears me, they'll think I'm another elk. So I cow calf call just real quietly as I'm walking before I get over to where the brush kind of thins out. Man, I hear this Jurassic Park bugle just, there's no high pitch at all. It's just this big wheezy growly bugle. I'm like, oh my God, it's like right there, like 60 yards and closing. I can hear brush pop. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to happen. I get my bow ready. It's the middle of the day. Well, the wind changes right before the bull steps out. And I hear him crash off. He smells me. I'm like, oh no, he probably smelled the beer. Oh, Keystone Ice did me dirty. So, I sat there for a little bit. I was like, oh my God, that must have been the biggest bull ever. He sounded like I never heard a bull. I've heard some growly bulls up until that point, but that was like super growly. I'm like, man, that's crazy. So I'm like, well, kind of the direction he went was kind of the way I was wanting to go anyway. So I hiked down on the hill there, and I get to almost to where I want to be. And then I jump a spike bull, right? This spike bull jumps up, and he starts barking, and he won't leave me. He's just standing there looking at me like 60 yards, and he'd bark and bark. And in my mind, I thought, well, maybe I should bark. And then turn barks into chuckles. So I would bark, or he'd bark, and then I'd bark and chuckle at him. And he would just look at me and kind of walk around and pace back and forth. And he would bark. And then I would bark and chuckle. Well, after a couple rounds of him doing that and me doing that, that bull that I think it was the same bull that I heard earlier he starts making noise again. He starts ripping. I'm like, holy cow, that's that same one. So, and he's coming. He's coming quick. And I'm like, holy cow. Just from this barking and chuckling that was going on. So he's closing in, closing in. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to happen. I got tension on the string. I can see brush moving, but I can't see the elk. I can't see antlers. It's just North Idaho, you know, it's just thick. This thing's going to walk out at 20 yards. And then I feel I feel the wind on the back of my neck. And I'm like, and it just goes silent. I'm like, oh no. And I hear him trot off. And there's a little opening in the brush, kind of on the breaks of a little hillside, and you could look into this little basin. And it was this giant alder flat basin. And I'm like, man, maybe I can see this bull. So I just sprint as hard as I can, run over there, you know, try to get to where I can see this bull. And I look over the hill, and it's just like the only opening in the area, right? I stand right in that opening and look down, and I'm just flabbergasted. I've never seen a bull that big before that, and I've never seen one since. This was a giant, and I'm like, oh, 380, 400 inches. Like nobody's ever gonna believe this. I was like, man, I wish I had a camera guy here so at least somebody could get a picture of this thing. There's nobody on God's green earth is gonna believe that I saw a bull this big in this area. It's not known for those kind of bulls. And anyway, he's down there and he's got his antlers and he's rubbing his antlers on the alders, these huge alders. The alders are probably 6 feet tall, 7 feet tall. And I'm like, whoa, maybe he's not that scared. He's rubbing. And what he was trying to do was trying to part him. He wanted to get away and run out through those alders. And finally he just kind of said, screw it, and just leaped like almost like you would jump a fence, but just kind of leaped right out in the middle of those things. And I watched him just walk, and I could see his rack just float through those alders for 200 or 300 yards up and out of that basin and up and over into the next drainage. And I was like, no one is ever going to believe me. Of course, the whole time I'm ripping bugles like, oh, you know, trying to get him to come back, and he didn't. And this is where it's going to sound like a bullshit hunting story, and you can take it for whatever it's worth. I mean, then another bull starts ripping off to my left, just down the hill a little ways, and he sounded even growlier yet, which I didn't think was possible. And he was just bugling like every breath almost, and I can hear brush popping. He's coming, and then I never did hear that bull again. Like he was coming and then just evaporated into thin air. And I'm like, what does that one look like? Because that one was the biggest bull in my life. So fast forward a couple days, I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave these elk alone. I really stunk it up there with my scent. I got to get out of there. So I hunted across the canyon from there the next day, made a big hiked through this area. I'm like, man, there's fresh elk sign everywhere. And as I'm going through it, and I kind of dropped down way low, and then I started hiking out this really long ridge. And every time I'd hit a little bench on this ridge, I would call. And I get up to this certain point, and bam, this bull answers right back where I just went through. And there's like a nice little offshoot ridge with a bedding area in there. Well, the bull goes, kind of just growls at me. So I thought, whoa. Why do you do that? I mean, I was literally walked by him like 60, 70 yards. Didn't make a peep until I was almost gone. And then he answers. So I turn around, run back down there, get all set up, call this bull in. Here comes a beautiful bull. It's got a broken G4, got a broken sword point, like a 330 type class bull. Here he comes. I'm like, oh my God, he's 35 yards. I draw my bow back. He's going to walk out at 35 yards. I stop him, cow call. And I shoot, and my arrow just disappears under him, like not even close. And he runs away. Yeah, I'm like, what the heck? So I step it off. It was like 55 yards. This was in the days before I didn't even own a rangefinder, right? And I was so mad at myself. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe. Like, that was way bigger than anything I'd ever shot, you know? I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, yesterday I blow it on this giant, that blow it on this one. And as he's coming in, I was like, he's an okay bull. I mean, nothing like that one. I don't even want to shoot him after seeing that one the day before, All of a sudden, I'm a trophy hunter, right? And like, this is bigger than anything, by far bigger than anything I've ever seen before. But like, yeah, you idiot. Yeah, you're going to shoot that thing. Of course, I miss. And so the next day was the second to the last day of season. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a push. I'm going to go over there, but I've got these elk figured out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and circle around and walk all the way to the bottom of the drainage, this big creek drainage, big deep creek drainage, and come in from the bottom in the evening. Once the wind changes, I'll just get in there and I'll call this bull in. I'm going to kill that big sucker. So I take my time and get over there, wait until the winds turn right. When the winds change, perfect, they're blowing downhill, and I can hear bulls. Like when the shadows start getting long, I can hear bulls cracking off on their own. They're just there's I don't know how many, a bunch. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be great. So I get down to the creek. I get down by the creek and I hear a little squirrely bull. And I could kind of look out and see, and there's a huge big meadow that runs in this creek bottom, and there's this bull, like a 5-point walking. And I'm like, huh, that's cool. So I cow call a couple times. And the next thing you know, here's that bull, and he pops out at 15 yards. Meanwhile, bulls are screaming up on top, the big ones. But this bull steps out at like 15 yards, puts his shoulder forward, and turns his head and looks the opposite direction. Looks up the hill, not towards me. And I'd already drawn my bow to practice. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to just practice drawing my bow on this thing. I'm not shooting this little bull. I'm going to shoot that big one. And I was just like, my pins are right there, 15 yards. And I'm like, oh, I had to shoot. So I shoot. And I kill this thing. And it's just a, 2.5-year-old 5-point. And all the while, the thing runs 50 yards, tips over dead. And all the while, I'm working this thing up. And I can hear them stupid suckers just screaming their guts out up there. I'm like, oh man, I think I screwed up. But I'm happy. It was a tough hunt. I had a lot of cool encounters, seen the biggest bulls I had ever seen, and end up killing an elk, So as I getting done working this bull up, it turns dark, right? I'm like, okay, I'd been saving my flashlight for the hike out because it's a pretty good crappy hike out of there. So I'm like, all right, get out my mag light. This is back in the mag light days before they put the LED lights in them. And I pull out my mag light and I twist it and give it a little twist. And the damn batteries are so dead that it's like having a match that was lit up. It was about that much light. I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. And all I could think about was on the way in, when I was hiking in, there's a trail most of the way. But it's all brushed in. North Idaho trails that aren't maintained are they not much of a trail. But anyway, some guy had gone through and had hung ribbons in on the trail. And on the way in, I grabbed each one of those ribbons and pulled it off and cussed the guy and put it in my pocket. Put the ribbon in my pocket. I'm like, you stupid idiots putting ribbons on the trails. What are they doing? Well, all I could think about at that very moment was like, man, really wish I wouldn't have pulled them ribbons down. So I hike out of there in the dark, and man, it's just I knew the area pretty well, so it was luckily I found my way out okay. But the whole time, I'm covered in sweat and blood from that elk, and it's when wolves were first starting to like make an appearance in Idaho. It's like, you can kind of psych yourself out a little bit. You're like, oh man, I just picture wolves come along and catching my scent. And you're like, oh, blood. And start just tracking me down, and I'm just like, man, I need to walk faster. So I'm all hunched over, and I got this stupid mag light about as close to the ground as you can get it to make sure I stay on the trail, and I'm just all hunched over and walking, look like Quasimodo, on a full tilt, hiking out of this hellhole. And anyway, next day, my brother comes up to help me pack this out, and it started raining in the middle of the night, and the next day, it was just a torrential downpour all day. So we got to pack that bull in the wettest, most miserable crap. So it was probably good I killed that thing, because chances are that I got up there that evening and connected with the bulls. I mean, who knows? I might have. But if I'd have been like, oh, yeah, well, I'll get one tomorrow. Well, the whole next day, the last day of season was toast. It was just a downpour rain. Of course, no elk were bugling. And so I think that's one of those... a lot of things going on here. You make decisions, The decisions you make during the hunt is what's going to affect your outcome, right? Had I been, had I not drank Keystone Ice the night before, I would have been in that same spot, but in the morning when the winds were consistent. And maybe I would have called that bull in and killed it because the winds would have been consistent. I wouldn't get screwed by winds twice. Okay. Which, had I done that, I would have never had a chance to miss the bull the next day, the following day on the other side of the drainage, which made me run right out and buy a rangefinder. So I might have been like, oh, rangefinders, that's a bunch of bogus. You don't need those. I might have, that might have affected the following year's outcomes. So you just never know. It's like a cascade of events that change the course of your hunt. So anytime, I use these, like anytime I'm hunting and you come to that fork in the road to make a decision, like, oh, let's go do this instead of what we're here for. Like, oh, let's go take a little dirt bike ride instead of going hunting tonight or whatever, or take a midday bike ride, whatever. I'm like, we're not here to ride dirt bikes. We're here to hunt elk, right? So stay on course, stay on the mission, right? The mission comes first. We don't take tangents. We don't do these other things that take us away from the mission, right? Oh yeah, that's cold beer. Like, no, you can have one. You can't have 12 or six tall boys. Yeah, you can't. You're not allowed to have that because it's going to take you away. It's going to take away from the mission. So you have to make all the right decisions. But I will say there has been a few times where I've slept in and killed elk still. So if you do sleep in, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, you shouldn't have slept in, but get up, put your boots on, and go hunting, because there's several times where it's paid off to where you slept in. I'm like, oh, there's one. I'll just call him right in and kill him. Like, why didn't I do that earlier in the week?
It's all too easy too, I think, to let one decision like ruin, the rest of the day. Right. I slept in late. It's like, well, how many people kill bulls midday? A lot. Like, all right, this is kind of now what you have to reap is you're out in the heat and try to figure it out, but you got to make up for the shitty decision you made previous.
Yeah.
The other one. So I was over at Spokane Valley Archery earlier this week or last week, and I was chatting with Justin. Who we were just talking about the podcast, and I had told him you were coming on, and I know you know those boys.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned though one story about you finding a fugitive on a hunt. And he's like, you have to have him tell that one. So I was like, I got to make it a point to at least call that out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was 2010? 2009? 2009. It was 2009. So my brother-in-law and I, Randy, we were elk hunting together, and we had to go. We could make a short trip, but we couldn't do anything big because we had to drive all the way back to town, then drive into the airport and pick up my cousins from Florida that were going to come out and spend a week and hunt with me. And let's just walk out this little trail I know, and we'll go out there and we'll bugle down into this hole, and if anything, we'll hear bugles for the morning. Okay, great. So we walk out there, and as we're walking, the brush is typical Idaho brush. It's waist tall, and the trail's kind of overgrown. And I stepped over a windfall, and I look, and there's a guy laying in the trail with his head, like his feet away from me, and his head on my end, face up. But I can't see his eyes. There's too much brush. I'm like, stop. I'm like, I didn't want to spook the guy, and I just stop, and I'm like, back up. I'm like, Randy's like, what? I'm like, there's a guy laying there. He's like, okay. I'm like, and as I process all this, I see the guy. I see he's got this carton like a Florida's best orange juice, like the carton of orange juice. Like there's an orange juice carton, and all of a sudden, my mind does the little hamster wheel starts turning. I start seeing the little equations in the sky, and I'm like, things are starting to add up. I'm like, what? I think I know. Like I'm understanding what I'm seeing. Now, if you rewind a little bit, a few weeks, like months, like in the middle of July that year, local guy burns his he lives with his parents, and they're elderly. He burns their house down with them in it. Well, the dad gets out, but the mom was in a wheelchair and was unable to get her out, and she died of smoke inhalation or whatever. Anyway, she passed away, and he took their car, stole the car, burnt the house down, and was on the run. Well, on the road up to this hunting spot, that summer, this was July. It was a couple weeks later, after this all happened. There was this huge big burnt spot in the road. There was there was some snow, like a snow drift, like you couldn't drive any further. But there was this huge spot just burnt down into the dirt and mud, but nothing there. I'm like, what the heck? It almost looks like a car fire here. Well, the guy fled to there and torched the car right there, burnt the car down, and then was gone. And my brother said, yeah, you'll probably run into that crazy bastard up there in the woods come hunting season. I'm like, that guy's in Mexico. He's not anywhere near there. Well, from July through September, he'd been living in the mountains up there, and there was a little Forest Service bathroom, one of the concrete bathrooms, the little, they got the pit you poop in, and they're made from concrete. Anyway, there was one of those. So I guess he'd been kind of hanging around there all summer, and people had kind of seen him off and on, and he'd be like, hey, you got any food or whatever? And people were like, yeah, whatever. And they would call it in, and the sheriff would go up and look for him and couldn't find him. And I had my camper there for like a week before this all happened, and I always leave my camper unlocked when in those situations, like if I have to leave it for a few days if I'm not there, because I don't want somebody to break the windows out to find out there's nothing of value in there. I'm like, I don't leave anything of value, like maybe some canned soup or something in a sleeping bag, an old crappy sleeping bag, but I mean, you're not going to steal it. Like, walk right in. Well, nobody'd been in the camper. Like, it had been swept perfectly clean, and it had rained a lot, and it was kind of muddy out, and you'd have been able to see tracks in the camper. No, it was like 300 yards away. He hadn't bothered the camper. But anyway, and then on Labor Day weekend, we were up there, and we were camping, and my son's like, oh, I need to use the bathroom. I'm like, I walk down there and use it. So he walks down there, and he rattles the door handle, and he hears somebody inside say, occupied. So he kind of hangs out, and he starts getting nervous, so he pulls his pocket knife out. He's like, I don't see a car sitting around here. So he's a little nervous, so he pulls out a pocket knife, and he's sitting there, and the guy starts opening it up, and he kind of hides and gets back, and he's like, oh, I said, who was it? What did they look like? Because he's telling me this story. I'm like, he's like, he just looked like an old hobo. I said, a hobo? You mean like a hippie? Because the area has a lot of hippies in the mountains there in the summertime. Like, no, not a hippie. It's just a hobo. I'm like, hobo, huh? All right, whatever. What'd you do? Well, I went and used the bathroom. Okay. So, all of this, and I said, did he have a backpack? No. The only thing he had was a carton of orange juice in his hand. And I'm like, well, this was 2 weeks later. And then all of this stuff is like starting to add up in my brain. I was like, and I tell Randy, I'm like, it's the murderer. He's like, the Mordor. Murderer. So we all back up. Like, okay, what do? We think we've caught him sleeping, right? We've caught him sleeping. So I was like, oh, man, what do we do? Like, we got to get a hold of the cops, and we got to do, like, we can't let him get away. That son of a bitch burned his house down with his mom and dad in it. And Randy pulls out his gun, hands it to me. He's like, here, you stay here. I'll go get help. Like, no, it's your gun. Nope, too late. So we can see a camp spot from where we're at. There's another camper there. So, and there's a guy that we'd met, and had been hunting. His wife was in camp. And so he goes down and tells her, hey, go to town, call the sheriff, say, we're up here, tell him where it's at. We've got this fugitive at gunpoint. Get up here right away. Okay. So this is like, middle of the day. Well, she comes and goes, and she's like, he goes down back. Yeah, I called him. Said it'll be a little while. Okay. Well, the county seat was, I don't know, 4 hours away. This is in the middle of the damn mountains, right? Middle of nowhere. So we're sitting there like, okay, what do we do? Like, I know me, I kind of lounge. If I get in the middle of the day, if I'm out hunting and I take a nap, you may lay there 2 or 3 hours, and he wasn't. We couldn't really see him because there's too much brush, so he could have been rolling over and being quiet. You know, if he's on the loose, he's not going to be drawing attention to himself. So we're like, okay, we're just going to stay right here and make sure he don't sneak off somewhere. And then it's starting to get dark, and it's starting to get stormy, and the cops still haven't came. And we're like, okay, we're gonna have to take the law into our own hands. We're gonna have to capture this guy. And Randy's like, yeah, I've got all sorts of training. He's like, all right, we're gonna role play. He's like, you act like you're the fugitive, and I'll show you what we're gonna do. And I said, okay. And I said, all right, I've got some string in my pack. We can paracord. We can tie him up. All right. So he's like, all right. You make them get on the ground and on their knees, and you make them cross their heels, your feet and your heels. That way you cannot get up, right? And he's like, I'm like, yeah, right. He's like, oh, try to get up. I'm like, I can't. Okay. He's like, all right. So we do this little rundown. He's like, all right, okay, this is what we're gonna do. He's like, so we sneak up, and we get closer and closer, and pretty soon I pick up a little stick and I throw it over there to get this guy's attention. Like, nothing. Randy throws a stick. Nothing. Pretty soon I throw a stick. Nothing. I was like, I'm out of sticks. Yeah, me too. I'm like, hello? We're hunters. Hello? No, we don't hear nothing. And Randy says, hello? We're hunters. No. No reply. I said, we're hunters. We have medicine. I don't know why I said we have medicine. I guess it goes back to when I was a kid and I was watching some old cowboy film and they were trying to make friends with the Native Americans and they're like, you mean you no harm? We have medicine, you know. I guess like maybe that's like a non-confrontational, like we're here to help, not here to kill you. And we still don't hear nothing, so we move on. I'm like, all right, move in. So I have my bow. I have an arrow nocked, and Randy's got the gun at this point, and he's like moves in. He gets up there, and you could not see his face until you stand right over him, and he goes, "Oh, he's dead." His eyes were all shriveled up like raisins. So we're like, okay, well, still no cops. So we walk back down to the camper where the lady's at and say, hey, we found him. The guy's dead. He's dead. She's like, okay, well, her husband was coming back. We're like, we're going to head back to town and like figure out what the heck the deal is with the cops. And we got to call home and tell our wives that there's a delay and because they're expecting us. And anyway, on the way to town, we pass a car and they stop and it's a guy. He's like, I said, hey, and he's got a light flashing. I said, hey, are you a police? What are you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm the coroner. I'm on call. I'm out of Spokane. I'm like, coroner? For what? I guess there's a body or something up here, huh? I'm like, well, that's not what we told. We told the cops there's a hostage situation and a standoff. We've got this criminal at gunpoint. Oh, I don't know. They just told me to come up here. Okay, well, he beat the cops out of Spokane, Washington to this spot, right? Like it's even further than the other place. Well, so we go down to town to the nearest phone and we call our wives and say, hey, this is the lowdown. And about almost the time we get there to call our wives, we see a cop and he's like, oh yeah, this and that. And I'm like, yeah, we're calling our wives. We'll meet you back up there. So he goes back up. And we meet him, and now it's just raining till I'll get out. And we're like, what? This is like 6 or 7 hours later. Like, what? Why'd you hurry? Why'd you get here so fast? He's, oh, yeah. Well, it was the sheriff, the county sheriff's retirement party, and everybody was at the all the officers were at the retirement party, and there'd been a lot of drinking. And I don't know if he was the one that was the most sober to drive or if they got him from somewhere else. But the county seat was like, I might as well have been on the other side of the world. Like there was not a direct road to it. He had to go all the way around Robin Hood's barn to ever get there. Anyway, he gets there. I'm like, oh yeah, so we tell him, yeah, the guy's dead. You know, he's like, well, where is it at? Come show me. I'm like, no, you can go find it. We've been here long enough. You should have got here earlier. Just walk out that trail. You'll walk right into him. So him and the coroner went out there and did their business. But anyway, yeah, that's the story of finding the dead guy.
That is like, it's up there on the list of like, especially. So I live over in like the Silver Valley,
Yeah.
which I know you're from the area, so you're
Well, that's where the county seat was, is the Silver Valley. That's where they had to come
That's a
to.
haul.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a haul. It's but we have like numerous times where it's like, yeah, people love to flee out to these mountains because I think of all the things you've said with like even just the hunting. It's so
Mm,
hard to find anything
yeah.
out here. Uh, and it's always the fear of mine of like, I'm going to bump into someone I shouldn't be bumping into, or
Hmm.
someone doing something they shouldn't be doing out there. And like, even that, it's like, I think even a couple, at least last year, maybe I think they finally found the guy, but he's been on the run for the last 2 years.
Holy cow.
Was last seen 2 ridges over from my house.
Wow.
And I'm like, I just don't want to go out there. So it's every time we go, it's you're packing something
Yeah.
just in case, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it kind of is the world we're living in these days.
Yeah. You pack heat for the people, not the animals. That's for darn sure. That was
And
the
it's the one
second,
beauty.
and that was the second dead person I found that year.
What was the other one?
Found a guy that wrecked in the middle of the road in a Jeep,
Oh
rolled his
shit!
Jeep down the middle of the road. And unfortunately, he didn't make it. So, man, I had some weird trauma that year finding dead people. I didn't sleep good for a while.
That's two more that I've found my whole life.
Yeah, and since then,
Dang,
thank goodness, I haven't found any others. That was the up until then. But that was a crazy year for that. It was, yeah, weird.
dang, man, that's heavy stuff. I know that is I guess cool. Maybe it would have been also cool if it was a hostage standoff and you guys were the heroes.
I know,
But
right?
I almost feel like just for everyone's sake, it's probably better you
Yeah,
found him canned.
yeah, that would have been super weird. All right, come here. But he was super old and emaciated. He was like basically starved to death. He had like a
Yeah.
flashlight, an old flashlight, the kind you put like two D batteries in, kind of lengthways, and he had that, just the casing of it, and he had huckleberries stuck. He'd been picking huckleberries and putting it in there to eat. I guess that was his like what he could put them in to gather food, and I knew the deputy coroner real well in the county they took him to, and I said, yeah, what was your cause of death? And he's like, oh, it was, yeah, he was just emaciated. He just died, basically died of starvation.
Oh man. All right. On a less morbid topic,
Yeah.
and I don't want to keep you too much longer, man, but I would just kind of love to hear like what do you have kind of in the hopper for this coming season, and even business or just personal hunt wise.
Yeah, so I have a really good buddy that drew a special elk tag here in Idaho, archery elk tag, and I'm going to go the first 5 days of season and accompany him and a couple of their friends on the hunt, and just go enjoy. It's an amazing place, and we're going to go tag along and see if we can call bulls for this guy. A buddy of mine had that tag a couple years ago, another buddy, and it was an amazing place. I was fortunate enough to go for 5 days, I think, and it was fantastic. So we get to do that, and then I get back from that, and then my son Austin and I are going to go out for a week and hunt here in Idaho as well, archery hunt. I'll put he'll be the shooter the whole time, but I will bring my bow. I've got a tag for that because I've hunted with Austin enough to where, and other people, to where sometimes the bull will get past the shooter, and if you don't have your bow, then you may miss the opportunity to just shoot one pretty close and easy. So that's the goal there. And then after that, I'll come home, turn and burn, and head into Western Washington and jump in with Jason Phelps, and we're going to drive to the Yukon, the Canadian Yukon, and moose hunt. Him and I both are going to hunt moose up there, and that will be awesome. We'll drive to the outfitter base camp and then fly in from there to a remote lake somewhere, and then on the 16th of September, and then we fly back out to civilization on the October 3rd. So we'll have a pretty good stretch there to hunt moose, and then after that we'll have some mule deer hunting here in Idaho for a few days, and then back to elk hunting, rifle elk hunting in Idaho. I bought a second tag today, and I'll go rifle elk hunting. That'll be a little bit more just for my hunt. It'll just be me and cameraman Dusty going, and then a little later on have a Kansas whitetail archery tag. So Jason Phelps and I both drew again somehow. Lucky, I don't know how we're so lucky, but we did. and so we're gonna go out to our buddy Randy Milligan's place, and go deer hunting with bows in November, maybe December. I don't know. We're trying to figure out. It's our schedules are a mess in November. He's Phelps drew a really good muzzleloader tag in New Mexico in November, so there's some conflicting dates. So we're still trying to figure that out when we're gonna go.
You guys are living the dang dream, man. The moose hunt, that's like my, whether financially saving up for it, mentally saving up for it, all of the stuff, but that is
All
like
of it.
my dream to get out and like bush plane it, get in, just kind of have that full bore experience. It'll be interesting. I care to connect with you afterwards just to hear how
Yeah,
kind of the season goes,
yeah,
and
yeah. We'll do a
it's
recap.
yeah, I think we should, because that's I mean, shoot, you have more stuff going on this season than I would say like most people do in 10 years.
I got a lot of moving pieces. You know, that's where I'm fortunate, you know, to get all the time in the woods and stuff. You know, these days I have a job that allows me to have that much time in the woods. You know, for years, 18 years, I worked a job that, you know, I'd have a week every year to hunt elk or do whatever. You know, I'd have 1 week with the family vacation, and then I'd put another week to hunt elk. And then I changed jobs and had a little more time to hunt. And then my kids were getting old enough, and then they got to be out of the house, and you got, you know, freed up a little bit more time. And then now I get a lot of time, but I get a lot of moving pieces at work though. So man, it's crazy, and
Yeah,
everybody's like, "Oh yeah, your job it must be so awesome. You get all this time." Like, well, it comes at a cost. Like, what you don't see is all the non-fun things that we get to do that they pay us to do instead of just hunt all the time. So I got
yeah,
to have everything ready and primed and ready to go on for autopilot whenever I'm gone. So hopefully that'll all work smoothly. But should.
yeah. I can definitely sympathize with that. I had, I mean, I was working. I don't know. Are you familiar with any snowmobile brands? North Idaho,
Vaguely.
Washington, like 509. You ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so I did all of 509's international sales,
Oh,
uh, yeah, all over the globe. But I sympathize so much when I hear people kind of work in awesome industries, but it's always it's a double edged sword because rarely is it just fun. It's
right.
like there's still real jobs and there's real quotas and there's real expectations and responsibilities outside of elk hunting or
Hmm.
outside of snowmobiling. Um, which is always a good one. And maybe next episode we can jump into just kind of like how you battled, or not battled, but how you've kind of helped yourself through burnout. You know, again, if you're living in that world, you can have passions, but sometimes that work can drag some of that stuff
Oh
down.
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. All the stuff that operates in the back of your mind, you know, in the background is what really takes away, that steals the joy from your day to day, you know.
Yeah,
But you have to kind
for
of
sure, man.
figure that, you got to
Well,
mitigate
last
that.
question before we roll.
Yeah.
I would love to hear kind of I mean, you are in such a cool spot in the industry as far as, you know, such an awesome brand. And I think definitely on the side of, I mean, a lot of cutting edge kind of new tech in the
Hmm.
calling world, but then, you know, also on the side that's, you know, with Meat Eater telling awesome stories, you know, getting so many new people into the brand, or sorry, into the sport.
Yeah.
I'd be super curious to kind of hear like your pulse check on the hunting industry and kind of what you want to start seeing, or what, you know, you kind of see things trending towards.
Well, I know the last 10 years technology has just been going crazy in the hunting world. But you're starting to see fishing game departments react. For instance, you know, trail cameras during season, you know, there's been states that are like, you can't run them during certain periods of time. Idaho is proposing, I know they have a big, group that does a workshop, you know, people part of the public, people part of the department that are workshopping all these ideas, like things like that are dramatically affecting hunting, you know, technology being one, like cell phone cameras, etc. Thermal devices where, you know, you walk out in the dark, pure dark, and you pull out your thermal and you can see all the animals like crystal clear, easy as can be. Like, it's kind of cheating. I mean, some of these things are kind of cheating, though. Some of them, like the trail camera thing, it could go either way. I'm like, yes, you can get images in real time, but I've been around trail cameras long enough to where just because you've seen something on a trail camera doesn't even mean you'll ever see the animal ever, or even know about it besides the trail camera. I mean, even the cell phone ones. See this in Kansas all the time. We go turkey hunting out there. Our buddy has tons of private property. He's got little turkey bait stations. You know, you can come and scratch the corn or whatever. He's got trail cameras on the cell phone trail cameras. So it's like, oh yeah, there's turkeys in the area. So we go over there. You'll be like, there's no turkey. You're lying. There's no turkeys in this area. You know, it's not like you're going to go shoot them over bait, but you're going to be like, okay, we know where to go, you know, hunt and call, you know, this area. But half the time it's like, or there's been a big buck. There's been a giant whitetail buck hitting this spot. You're like, oh yeah, we'll go sit on that. And you never see them. Like, just, it's happenstance, right? It's just a lot of luck. I had a bull on trail camera last year. Like, oh man, there's a bull. I'm gonna be on him in the morning. I found him, but I chased him around and scared the crap out of him, never to be seen again, right? So, I mean, yeah, would we have known where to go had we not had that trail camera? Maybe, maybe not. But so there's definitely some pros and cons to both sides. So, but like the thermal imagery, that thing's like, yeah, you should not be able to use that. I
don't think I'm in the tax bracket that can afford that type
exactly.
of tech.
But they work so good, people would sell a kidney to like get one. But you know, they're illegal in Washington State. I'm not sure about Oregon or Montana or any of the surrounding states. Idaho, they got them on the chop block. It's coming.
Yeah,
rightfully so. But and even in daylight hours, you can pick out stuff. They work so good. If you got a good one, you can see through the reef rod and you can see a rabbit. You can see rabbits in there. North Idaho, you might be like, oh, well, I thought there'd probably be some deer on that hillside. No, there's nothing but a couple of rabbits. Actually kind of discouraging in some places. You're like, well, I thought there'd just be animals here that just aren't moving. No, they're just none. They don't exist.
There's just no animals.
There's just no animals. Like, I think the fish and game need to go out and use them a little bit and find those animals they think are there. But you know, that's a completely different topic.
What would you like to see kind of coming in the industry to kind of keep things fresh, keep things as, you know, I think we've seen this awesome uptick, you know, even since the COVID time of so many more people in the woods, which some can look at as, you know, hey, it's getting a little more saturated and there's competition. But at the same time, when it's, you know, when you're talking about an industry and, you know, this is the kind of stuff that ends up allowing companies to be innovative, create new things when they're able to kind of see that stream come. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious kind of what, you know, you don't have to share any secrets of what's coming because I know you have a better look at the future, but we'd just love to kind of hear your thoughts.
Well, as far as the industry wide or the like hunting in general, what I'd like to see is like people need to lay down their swords a little bit. I think we are all our own worst enemy when it comes to PR and stuff. Like whether, you know, people love to get on the internet and keyboard warrior each other and try to. I mean, it's easy to fall into. Somebody says something, you get mad, and you're like, oh, I'm trying to tell that guy to shove it. And I found if you kind of wait for an hour and read it, and you're like, whatever, I don't even know this guy or whatever. You know, everybody just needs to focus on trying to be nice to each other. Let's all get along. Don't throw rocks at each other. Try to understand other people. Like, don't yuck somebody else's yum. You know, like crossbows. Like, don't sit there and throw rocks at the crossbow guys. I mean, if they want to shoot a crossbow and it's legal, let them. Nobody said you had to. Trad guys, don't throw rocks at the compound guys. Muzzleloader hunters, don't throw rocks at the modern rifle hunter. Like everybody's got like a little gripe, and I think they just air it on social media and forums and everywhere. And it sure is easy to talk tough and say all the things when you're not face to face with somebody. But a lot of that stuff you'd never say face to face to someone's face ever. So think about it, man. Like we're all fighting for the same thing. We're all fighting for hunting. So getting so many people into hunting, I think hunting They say hunters as a whole are on the decrease, but I think adult onset hunting is very popular and it's on the rise. So you have a different demographic. Definitely, it's not like 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds that are being brought into the fold. It's more like 40-year-old guys and 35-year-old guys and 20-year-old people. And they're once they've kind of set out in life and they decide they want to hunt. It's not a bad thing, but we all have to remember we're all in this together, and don't bicker and fight amongst each other. Let's all kind of fight for the same goal. We kind of seen this with this public land attempt to sell off, which I hear they're starting to talk about that stuff again. I think it's never going to end, but everybody took a stand. Everybody in the hunting, like all these hunters, they called their Congress people. They called, they made phone calls, they sent emails. They all kind of united. Guess who else did it? So people that the people that we may not always share the world, want to share the same world with. Some people you probably wouldn't sit at a table or sit at a bar and drink a beer with them. You got all the hikers and the hippies and all those people. Those people love the same resources we do. So I thought that was pretty cool, to see a united front. Now everybody in that world, they're we may not all see the same side of the political aisle and stuff, but I feel like if you talk to most people, everybody's more towards the middle than they are on the far reaches of the outside. So I think we have to kind of people get caught up so much with social media and everything mainstream media with how reality is. But when you actually go out into your community and visit with people who may not be your normal type of people, they're not that bad. They're pretty moderate, right in the middle somewhere.
I was chatting with Trevor Austin yesterday, actually, over at Pacific Calls, and the same similar topic came up, and we were both like, I mean, I don't mean this in a political way, but it's it's kind of awesome to see when something comes across like this public land debate and what people want to sell off or not, and it's like, it showed that it was something that people actually cared about.
Yeah.
It's like that was when people are calling in, and it's like, think of how many other issues come across people's desk, and it's like, oh yeah, that's bullshit. Oh yeah, I don't agree with that. I'm not picking up a phone and calling our public folks, but that comes across, and it's, I'm punching in and I'm leaving a message or I'm writing an email. Mm-hmm. And I think the cool thing is on the same side, to your point, when people that I don't agree with are doing the exact same thing, because it's all of a sudden this resource that is so much bigger than all of us individually, mm-hmm. or all the groups individually.
Yeah.
It becomes this really cool kind of thing. And I think it's one where I just hope people remember, hey, remember when we all kind of came together on that? We should look at that lens a little bit more often. We'd probably get a lot more done.
Yeah. There's so much division and stuff there's so much shit to be mad about and to be divisive. And when you boil it down to real people, when you're out in your community, how much of that shit really matters? Hardly any of it. For the most part, most people you meet on the daily, no matter what their political beliefs are, they're usually good people. They're you could, they probably do you a favor if you need it. They wouldn't just, we're not as separated as everybody as the media wants you to think we are, and I think that's what people need to really pay close attention to.
I do agree. I think honestly, that's probably a great spot to end this. Is a lot of us are a lot more alike than we are different.
Yeah, definitely.
And for that, man, hey, I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you owed me no obligation, and it's awesome to see somebody like yourself willing to jump on something small like this. So,
yeah. Hey,
it means the world, man.
I get on it. Anybody asks me to get on a podcast, I get on there. I'm like, why not? It's just a little bit of time, I'm happy to help out.
It is.
If I can help people out, then maybe somebody will help me out someday.
I love that, man. Well, hey, I appreciate it. Cheers.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Yep.